In this video, we're going to be checking out the brand new Hot Toys Captain America Civil War, the Iron Man Mark 46 die-cast 6-scale figure. Thank you to Sideshow Collectibles for providing this reviewing sample. The Iron Man Mark 46 stands a little over 12 inches tall, actually 12.59 inches high to be exact. He is expected to ship this year, June 2017. So this guy gets a pretty cool hexagonal display base, kind of akin to like a baseball diamond. On the top is this ripped away, kind of like highway rubble. Painted very nicely and very nicely sculpted there as well. And then on the front, you've got Mark 46 underneath that, Captain America Civil War. The piece itself really looks great. Sometimes the sizing of these display bases can be a little bit too big to accommodate everything in a detolf, but you know, that's pretty neat. I'm going to probably display it like that. And now also with the Captain America Civil War figure as well in the collection, probably going to pit the two on top of this display base. One of the other things that the display base does have is two options. One of which is the adjustable flight neck, flight stand. We've seen these before where this can be bent in any which way that you so wish. So if you want to have Captain America, or in this case Iron Man I should say, flying, you can bend the stand depending on how you want it. There's also the adjustable clip that just attaches to the top. And then we can just screw that to cap it off, make sure it doesn't fall off. And you can adjust the waist clip that way. The other thing that the figure does come with, which I really like, I'm going to take this off, take the waist clip off. We're going to put this to the side because we've seen these before. You also get this pretty neat looking pole, and normally the poles are kind of just straight. What they ended up doing was they gave you a slightly bent pole so that when you put the same waist clip on it, you can kind of have the character tilted back as opposed to having it straight up. Gives you a couple of other options when you want to display him. Sometimes I don't necessarily favor just an adjustable the flight neck, but I do really think that this is a pretty clever means to displaying him above and beyond just simply the default standing him as you see here. The Iron Man Mark 46 is actually my favorite armor of all the Iron Man armors that we've seen in the films. It's sort of taken its cues from some of the original armors, but it's made it a much more sleeker, more streamlined design. So really the majority of the color here is a cranberry red, and then you've got little accent areas here of the gold and the silver. I was slightly soured. I don't want to say soured, but I didn't really like the suit worn in Iron Man 3. Didn't like that the majority of the coloring was that gold color. Much favored more so Iron Man personally in red. And this armor looks really nice. Hot Toys I think did a great job on recreating that armor, giving it to us here in a, might I also add, die cast. So you know, there is substantial weight to this figure, but a die-cast release here of Iron Man. I suppose for additionally the little line here above the eyes, the faceplate is really not that much different from some of the older Iron Man suits. There is a considerable amount of light-up features to this. We'll look at that in a second. The head actually is plastic, whereas mainly the torso is really where a lot of the die-cast resides on the figure. Loads of super cool detail on this guy as well. Like I mentioned, there's the little areas where there's the gold, and just moving things such as the arms away, you can see all the little gears and mechanics that would operate the Mark 46 armor. They haven't added a considerable amount of scratching or damage to it, but I do like that it's just these little nicks and scratches in the metal. Now that actually gets a little bit more predominant in some areas more than others. But it's not pristine. and it's not super scratched either. It does look like he's worn this armor, and then of course it gets a little progressively worse as you start switching out pieces. So like areas around the top of the shoulder blade here and in the shoulder capped armor, all these little scratches and stuff like that. This goes a long way for me because it shows a level of detail to it where it's not just simply let's give him a pristine armor. In addition to that, there's this additional kind of dark, a little bit of a dark shading around some of the little creviced and recessed areas of the armor, which I quite like. Lots of super cool little features on the armor, little venting ports and little areas here again on the sides. I mean, really a lot more of the detail you see when you start moving the arms out of the way. And the back. That's a couple more of those scratches and stuff that I was telling you about. Through the multiple releases that we've gotten from Hot Toys, I think that their armor creations have gotten better and better. They've seemed just to be honing their skills when it comes to, mind you, of course, they are releasing a ton of Iron Mans. Iron Mans probably are making up the majority of figure releases that we've seen over the last decade or so. Iron Mans really take a good chunk of that. But you really see that there's a considerable amount of additional care that they're putting into these with every single release. I really appreciate the smaller areas, like the forearms here, for example. In the forearms, not only do you have a little bit of that wear, but you've got these little small slits of silver right around here in the wrist section as well. Some bit of that gold. And even in the gold, they've put just a slight bit of wear to it. Just kind of put on, could also be just dirt as well that they've applied to it. Just to give it a little bit of age. Once again, you've got some of that going in the thigh armor plate as well. I like how the back hinges of the legs here almost have like an accordion look to it, as if you could imagine like the armor would be contracting and expanding depending on when Tony's moving. Super tons of detail here, also in the legs as well. It's by far one of my favorite armors. If you can believe it, this guy has 28 LED lights on him. 28. Now that also amasses some bit of time that would be required to put all the batteries in. You have to put batteries in basically the forearms, the shoulders, the head, the back, and the back of the thighs. The head's pretty easy enough. We're just going to go ahead and take that off. There's a very small magnet at the back there that just kind of keeps everything together. I've gone ahead and put the batteries in, but you will notice when I'm showing you where the battery compartments are that what I've left off was the screws. I took the screws out, put the batteries in, but I don't like to keep batteries in Hot Toys just for fear in case something happens to them. So what I usually tend to do, I'll take the batteries out afterwards. I'll probably display them likely without batteries. But if you are wondering why there's no screws in these, it's just simply I've taken the screws out. Go ahead and switch that on. And you have the front eyes of Iron Man's helmet light up. To light up his arc reactor, you have to spin the figure around to the back. Just go ahead and take this plate off. And once again, there's no screw. I've just left the screw off. We want to switch that on. Replace the cover. And this will light up the following lights. The lights right at the bottom, or around mid-waist. Lights at the back. And several lights, of course, on the front. The main one being the arc reactor. Lights up the top by the shoulder blade. Lights at the side by the rib cage. And then 2 pairs of lights by the abs. The shoulders can be a little difficult to access. You have to pry the shoulder off. Luckily, the shoulder seems to be actually metal, which is good because it seems to hold up a little bit more. I am concerned though, and it's not necessarily the shoulder aspect of it, but when you get to like the forearms and the legs, I'll show you what I'm talking about in a second, but I don't like that they're plastic and they're tabbed. Needless to say, you'll take that off, you'll switch the little switch here on the side. There we go. Now, this particular light, you'll have a light up function here on the back shoulder, and then we can go ahead and do the same on the other side. if we want to go ahead and get access to the repulsor blast, what we need to do is spin the figure up. And you need to access the plate here. Now this is what I'm talking about here. I'll just set the figure here for a second. There's these little tabs, these little plastic tabs right here. This also is a plastic plate. It's plastic there. But again, like there's these little plastic tabs that just slot themselves in the little slot areas on the sides of the forearm. I wish that this was magnetized instead of trying to pry off. I find it's more difficult with the thighs, but I wish that these were magnetized where you could just so easily unhinge them, or untab them by the magnets and access the battery compartment. Switch that on. You have your repulsor blast there. And again, we can do the same on this side. Last thing we have to do is access the thigh legs. And you need to access, once again, there's the little plastic tabs I was telling you about. They'll only switch these out to magnets. You can just so very much easily take these off. I just feel every single time prying these off that one of these days these little tab points are going to break off. Something that I hope that maybe future released figures, they might favor more so the magnet route, not necessarily tabs. Just to show you what I'm talking about here. There's little slots there. There's little slots there. You have to basically put one side in and then just put a little bit of pressure in until you snap the other piece off, or push the other piece in, I should say. Then you go ahead and do it on the other side, and all your lights are finished. And as well, when you switch the light on the thigh, what you end up getting is a light right by where the leg attaches to the socket on the waist. You have a light that lights up right by the knee, and you also have a light that lights up right at the calf. And there's the fully lit up armor with all 28 lights lit up. I like the fact that there's 28 lights. Don't necessarily like the fact that it takes so much to change and put new batteries in. Again, you've got areas on the thighs, area in the back, 2 on the forearms, and then 1, of course, in the head. 28 lights is good. A lot of involved to put all those individual batteries in. To see all the lights light up as well, I've gone ahead and cut the lights in the room. You can see all 28 lights going. Predominantly, most of the brightness is coming from the arc reactor, the repulsor blast, and the lights in the eyes. The Mark 46 also comes with an interchangeable brand new head sculpt of Tony Stark, aka Robert Downey Jr. And as I mentioned this with the Mark 46, how the armors just seem to get better and better as Hot Toys releases them. They become a more refined process. They get a little bit better as they find out new ways to incorporate new technology into the suits that they've released. So can also be said for the interchangeable face sculpts as well. I dare say this is probably the best Robert Downey Jr. face sculpt that we've received with a 6-scale figure release. The recent one that came with the Arc Reactor set, workshop, I didn't find had a good likeness to Robert Downey Jr., so I'm actually inclined to see if I can swap that head out with this head right here. The sculpting on the hair is just, it gets better and better and better, with this one being no exception. That sculpt is done very nice. The skin tone is also done very well. And if you can overlook the fact that maybe your new Robert Downey Jr. Heads, if you decide to, of course, swap this out to an existing Tony, this one, of course, will have also a bruise under his eye. I would say, though, I mean, I can't think of a Tony Stark head that looks as good as this one. This might actually be the best one I've seen from Hot Toys. Unwilling to abandon looking at the head sculpt again, I just want to really impressed with the face sculpt here. There's so much more to cover off on when it comes to the actual 46 suit. The eyes are just really done well here. A very subtle beard too. You can see all the individual hairs there, and even like a little bit of stubble. There's just this little bit of stubble on the under area of his chin. Okay. So if you want to change out the head here, what you need to do is grab the Mark 46. This may come off in 2 separate sections, but you can take the existing helmet off. close up. And then the other thing you'll want to do is remove the neck, which along the way you might find these little shoulder armor plates come off. That's natural. Just want to wiggle this off and pop it out of the socket. Before you go ahead and add the head, one other thing you want to add is this collar piece that comes for Tony's exposed head. The front has just kind of like an underlining collar to it. The back is pretty clever though, because it looks like it's the actual head that's folded back. In the movie, you remember, like, the helmet can actually retract. It can actually just fold itself up to the back here. It's pretty neat that they have that. So it kind of looks like, once you put the head through, of course, it looks like the armored helmet has just folded itself up and tucked itself to the back. And you can go ahead and, making sure you line everything up right, you can pop that into the socket. Iron Man suits, normally I want to put the helmet and keep the helmet on for displaying it. This might actually be one instance where the head sculpt on Tony Stark is just so good, I'd be willing to leave the helmet off altogether and just display it as you see here. Speaking of favoring, also if you favor a little bit more of a damaged arc reactor chest plate, Hot Toys gives you this really cool, really heavily damaged plate that you can add to the armor here. And for that, we're just going to grab the front here and pop it off. There's a couple of tabs at the top, tabs at the bottom. Luckily, they don't struggle as much taking them off as the arms and the legs were when changing out the batteries, but there's the non-damaged version, and there's the damaged version. Taking this off, you replace it the exact same way, just line everything up, pop that all in, and you've got the damaged arc reactor. Let's go ahead and spin the figure around. Once again, revisit the back here, pop that off. I'm going to switch it on, put the battery plate or the armor plate back on, and now you can see how that damaged armor looks with the lights. You can also go ahead and replace the top of the armor here with these little flare launching shoulder plates. One downside to these plates though, this one has it, I'll show you. You take them off and they have magnets. This is going back to kind of what I was talking about before. They have magnets. Magnets are good. The only downside though is that the glue I find on these aren't super strong, so I've had actually a couple of the magnets come off. So looking at the underside here, I don't have any magnet on here. I have to glue this one back on. It's a small enough magnet, but it doesn't seem like there's a very strong adhesive keeping them in place. So we take this one off. We can replace it with this one here, like that. And the magnet, when it is there, I should say, works well to keep everything in place. Go ahead and take this one off. And the magnet is inside a little cavity here. Once again, I'm just going to have to take some glue and just a little dollop. This is a very small thing. Just a little dollop of glue. I'll put that in place, and then we go ahead and replace these. But without that magnet, I mean, these do shift around a little bit on you, especially when you start moving these shoulders. These have popped off a couple of times, but once I get some glue going on there, it'll be good to go. So check these out. These are pretty cool. The Mark 46 comes with these missile-firing armor plates that actually replace the plates that are on his forearms currently. So that gorgeous cranberry red and gold, but now you can see how the plates have separated from themselves, and this one lone red missile has extended itself out. Now these are magnets. There's magnets on the back, so they're a little bit easier to put on and remove. Simply just go ahead and spin the figure to the side just to access his forearm. This would also come in handy too if you had long nails, but there's a magnet right there. You take that off, replace it with the armor of choice, or the arm of choice. Line everything up, and you can get him armored up. It's a small little touch, but I really like how that turned out. It also is neat the way that it adds a little extra bulk, because now all these plates have moved and shifted out of the way. Between that, and then again you've got the flares on the top here. Once again, we just Put those back on there. My only real critique from a standpoint of the collectible is just the magnets, just the glue that's in the magnets on the tops here, not strong enough. The glue that's on the sides adhering the magnets to those plates, fairly strong, but these ones on the top, I'm going to have to just, again, takes a little, just super glue, just put a little bit of glue in there and put the magnet plate back in place, because these do shift around a lot, and I want to just get that fixed up. That's, other than that, really, that's the only nitpick I can make about the figure itself. The figure is gorgeous. Everything comes together very nicely, except for like those areas on the top. One thing I can't forget about too is just spin the figure around, and he's got these little flaps at the back of his torso, and they can hinge up and down, and inside it's got some nice additional detailing there as well. The other accessories that come included with this figure, he gets a couple of these thruster attachments that can attach to the undersides of his feet. Now you can see those holes, how they come into play. You just want to attach the flame attachments to it. This serves a better purpose, obviously, when you have them on the flight stand. Looks pretty cool. Translucent plastic. These are a little on the spiky side, but translucent plastic nonetheless. And they're fairly easy to attach as well. If the hands seem like they're a little neglected because of the feet, those hands also come with similar attachments. And these look like they are affixed, they're like glued in place. And just to do that, we go ahead and pop the hand off, find the appropriate hand, and you just want to wiggle that back onto the socket. And you get something like that. Well, once again, there's the shoulder plate moving around on me. And you can get two of those depending on how you want to have them displayed. In addition to that, he's got a ton of different hands. He's currently got closed fists, but he's got your defaulted repulsor blast hands. These would project the light. As well, he has the go-to adjustable fingered hands, where there's an adjustable ball joint that attaches to the individual appendages, and then you can bend each of the fingers. Each long finger, or regular finger, does have 2 points of a bend. The thumb just has a single bend, and also would allow you to light up the repulsor blast through the tops there, or through the palms there. One of the other cool things that this guy comes with is a helmet of Captain America. You can have him holding the helmet if you want. You could also have, if you had Steve Rogers, you could have him just holding a little helmet there. Helmet's done as well paint-wise as old Tony over there. Paint on strap. It's got that kind of dingy coloring that the Civil War Captain America suit had, which I like. Nice texture there as well. One thing I can't certainly forget as well, he comes with this, what looks to be kind of like a severed portion of a metal beam. It's got a little bit of rusting here as well. You can even see how the beam has been fused to an existing other beam here. It's very light, like it doesn't have any real considerable weight to it. It feels like it's just like a plastic. You could have him holding it, I suppose, as well. You could also have it just sitting on the display base that he comes with. The Iron Man Mark 46 gets a ball joint in the head. Now currently is with the Tony Stark head, but nonetheless a full rotation all the way around. All the way around. And a hinge up and down. I'm going to kind of hold these plates right now because they've got, again, I just need to adhere those a little bit better. The shoulders are cool because they do rotate forward and back. To give you a little extra clearance though, you can take the arm and pull it away from the torso socket, revealing a little bit more to the mechanics on the inside, but also giving you a much more broader range of rotation in the actual arm section here. And then you can just pop that back into place. The arms move forward and back. They only bend to 160 degrees, so be very careful that you're not adding additional stress to the armor here. As well, you have a rotation to each of the individual hands. via the peg that they're pegged into. Like the other Mark suits that have come before him as well, what you can do is take the torso. Currently it does bend back and forth, but what you can also do is extend it where you have a little bit more clearance back and forth here. This also comes in handy too if you want to have them displayed in a flight mode where you can hinge the torso a little further back than normal. Lastly, for the legs do hinge forward and back, but what you can also do is pull them out on both sides, and this gives you a little extra clearance with moving the leg forward, back, and out. The skirt armor does a really good job of staying out of the way too, because these are hinged. When you rotate the legs out, these automatically will hinge out of the way. You get a swivel point at the top section of the thigh as well. You have two ratcheted knees, or two ratcheted hinges in the knees, one at the bottom and one at the top connecting to the thigh, allowing additional motion and movement there. This is pretty neat too, that when you rotate it, the armor separates from itself. So if you see the knee now, when you start unhinging it, it gives you all this additional accordion armor inside. That's really cool. I like that. And then rounding out the articulation, his foot moves forward and back. And like the skirt and the waist, when you move the foot forward, this front section here, the foot plate, moves out of the way as well. Sometimes it gets caught, but you can move it back and forth. And equally so, if you spin the figure around, when you move the back of the foot, the heel raises up as well, staying out of the way. The foot has also a slight ankle pivot. So between a forward and back motion and a hinge and swivel, I should say, back and forth, you can get them in a pretty decent enough stance. The Hot Toys Captain America Civil War Iron Man Mark 46 is currently on pre-order over at Sideshow Collectibles. So if you want to get on that list, get this guy as soon as he comes out. He's slated for release in June 2017. The price point on this guy is going to be just shy of $345, which generally is about the ongoing price when it comes to Hot Toy Iron Man figures, just because they're generally die cast. They've moved away from the plastic releases in 6 scale treatment. So you get die cast, they're a little bit heavier. You get a lot of extra accessories going for these guys. So the price point on the Mark 46 is on par with what we normally would get from a Hot Toys Iron Man figure. Overall, for this figure, I'm pretty happy with how he turned out. Again, the Mark 46 is one of my personal favorite suits from the film. From a standpoint on a figure, a couple little things that I would have hoped to have fixed is maybe like the plates where you can change out the batteries. Instead of using plastic tabs and having to struggle to try to get those tabs off without breaking them, I wish that they maybe went the route of going with magnets. And then speaking of magnets, I'm gonna have to go in and just kind of change the magnets on the shoulders, as that armor, those armor pieces tend to always keep popping off, and just a little bit of dollop of glue should basically guarantee that those aren't going to fall off if I'm moving the figure in any which way moving forward. Other than those little small nitpicks, it's a great looking figure. One of my favorite Iron Man suits. Hot Toys, I think, did it justice. A really super cool figure if you want to add this guy to your collection. Today, once again, we were looking at the Captain America. This was the Captain America Civil War Iron Man Mark 46 die-cast figure. If you guys like this channel and haven't had a chance to subscribe, what are you waiting for? Click that subscribe button, you're good to go. And if you're a fan of 6 scale figure releases, there's going to be a playlist there as well that you can watch for your viewing pleasure. Thanks for watching. See you next time.